It has been 15 years since the KORG Kaossialtor Pro debuted at NAMM, and I've had mine ever since that summer in 2010, and it has stayed on my desk more or less ever since. But why? Let me know in the comments if you are still using the OG Kaossilator Pro in your productions and how you use it, because like a lot of KORG stuff from this era, it can do a whole lot of stuff, but I think only some of it is really usable in practice. With 199 different patches, 4 looper banks, a gate arpeggiator fader, 31 scale presets, a sampler function, and MIDI controller functionality, the Kaossilator Pro competes with even more modern groove boxes in mini production units, but it does it in such a clunky and bizarre way. It really comes down to finding niche ways of using it that, for my purposes, are pretty limited. But in those limited ways that I've used it, I'm finding myself discovering even more sonic capability that isn't really apparent when you first turn this thing on. In typical KORG fashion, scrolling through the first 114 tonal patches, you'll find that most of them sound pretty awful, with only a handful standing out as actual usable sounds. And to make matters worse, many of these sounds have effects built into them that cannot be disabled or tweaked in any way except for using the tempo knob to dial in tempos for delays. Some patches make use of the Y-axis as sort of a wet-dry mix for some effects, but many patches, your effects are baked in, and in some cases, it ruins what would be an otherwise great patch. That said, there are a handful of patches in the lead, acoustic, and bass patches that are pretty decent here. Chord patches are a different story, with only maybe a couple patches that are usable in practice, mostly because the prescriptive chord sections at the top and bottom make it almost impossible to find a decent sequence of sounds that can make up a song. The touchpad makes matters worse, and we'll get into that in a second. The drum patches are fine, I guess. So with all that being said, why does this thing still live on my desk, and how do I use it? Well, by hooking it up to thousands of dollars worth of pedals, of course. Seriously. Pair this thing up with pedals that have good filters, some dreamy reverbs or distortion, and now the Kaossilator becomes a much more interesting instrument. But I think more than the combination with pedals, The form factor is really the thing that is keeping this thing on my desk. The utility of being able to go to the Kaossilator anytime just to add another layer or interesting texture on top of something I've been working on is, for me, way easier than grabbing an actual keyboard synth or pulling up a MIDI instrument. However, for any actual composing or heavy lifting in a song, I generally stay away, mostly because the touchpad is unreliable. Also, your input is not quantized, so if you're trying to write a very specific syncopated lead line, good luck. You can use the ARP gate fader to do some crazy stuff though. Not sure why they call it an ARP when it doesn't ARP. With 31 scale presets and 2 full octaves to dial in a key, you really can use this thing to come up with some wild improvised solos over top of simple chord progressions. I found that some of the effects patches are really interesting and unique. Some of the things that this thing does I've never heard anywhere else, and KORG made great use of the touchpad here to allow for doing some really dynamic things with some really crazy soundscapes. But wait, there's more. This thing has a very basic sampler built into it. Yes, patch 199 takes the input and loops it in time by division based on where you are on the x-axis. And every once in a while you can find a happy accident by running some random sounds through it. It is possible to make full-on productions with the Kaossilator Pro, and I suppose it is possible that someone, somewhere, might actually like those productions. But it's almost a requirement to hook this thing up to an external effects unit. If only there were one that looked just like it, only in red. Thanks for watching this, and don't forget to share all your uses for the Kaossilator Pro in the comments. What are your favorite patches? And does anyone use the vocoder?